Senator John Fetterman is expected to return to work on Capitol Hill next week after more than 5 weeks of inpatient treatment for clinical depression. Fetterman received bipartisan support when he announced his hospitalization, with some lawmakers sharing their own personal and family experiences. So could this be an inflection point in our nation's conversation around mental health? ABC's Brittany Shepherd recently sat down for an exclusive group interview with 4 members of Congress, including 2 Iraq War veterans who have all faced mental health struggles and are coming forward to share their stories in tonight's Prime Focus.
I want to start by thanking you all for meeting me and having this very important, I think sometimes tough conversation about mental health. I think it's best to start if everyone could go around and briefly explain in your own words in a minute what mental health struggles you've personally faced.
Look, I suffer from PTSD from the war. You know, I sometimes feel a lot of regret. I feel sometimes that that I should have gone instead of some of my guys that went. And sometimes I feel maybe a little hypersensitive about my surroundings.
So I first experienced depression when I was in my late teens, when I was in college, and recovered from that, and then had another experience with depression when I was a young mom in my 30s. Both times I was able to get care and treatment, first when I was in college, and then later when I had a therapist who helped me figure out that I was experiencing clinical depression and helped me over time heal.
So I dealt with post-traumatic stress after Iraq. And it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that I even had it, because I didn't have the worst symptoms. I would wake up in cold sweats and have terrible dreams, but I was able to go to graduate school. I was able to hold down a job. A lot of vets can't even do those simple things. But when I came to terms with the fact that I had it, I got treatment.
I struggle with depression. Back in 2007, I dropped out of college, dropped out of NYU, because I found myself struggling with depression. There were moments when I even attempted suicide. I was admitted into Columbia Presbyterian, where I was formally diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And ever since then, I've been managing the condition. And I never thought I would make it to the United States Congress, despite my lifelong struggle with depression.
The reason we're all sitting together right now is that your colleague, Senator John Fetterman, is dealing with his clinical depression. I just want to bring you guys back to that moment when that news broke. Do you guys remember how that made you feel?
Well, you know, I spent a lot of time with John, actually, the day that he checked himself into the hospital, because we were having a retreat amongst all of our caucus members. And so, I mean, my initial feeling was just one of intense empathy.
I was scared for him, though, too, because I know when you start talking about some of the mental illness you may have or what you're dealing with, that there's also people that will target you for it. They will try to tear you down. They'll try to use it against you, against your family.
It reminded me of my own hospitalization. And for me, Senator Fetterman is a hero, because he has the courage to tell his truth about his struggle with depression in the public square.
It's been 50 years since George McGovern removed Senator Thomas Eagleton from that presidential ticket, when it came to light that Eagleton had been hospitalized for depression. Not only that, but also was receiving electroshock therapy. When you think about McGovern and Eagleton, how much has changed for you, and perhaps more importantly, how far do we have to go still?
When I had been in the Senate for about a year, I made the decision to give a speech on the floor of the Senate about my own experience with depression.
There is no magic cure for depression. There is no magic bill to solve this problem.
I mean, it felt pretty scary to do that on the floor of the United States Senate. Senator Eagleton was in my mind when even though that seems like a long, long time ago. Of course, you never really know how people are judging you, because the people that are judging you rarely judge you to your face, right? Yeah. They usually judge you behind your back.
Or on Twitter.
Well, now you can judge you right in your DMs,
yeah,
right?
Look right on Twitter, you'll see them.
But it's scary.
Exactly.
Were any of you guys scared to go, oh my gosh, I'm putting myself out there like this in a way that I don't know how it's going to land?
I thought it might end my career. I thought I could be out of politics the next day when I told my story about dealing with post-traumatic stress. And honestly, I think that is as close as maybe 10 years ago, that might have been the case. Instead of being castigated, I remember how many people in the next few days and weeks came up to me and just opened up about
yeah, me too.
their own stories. I mean, people from all over America I'd never met before, but even close colleagues, friends, people in my office who I had no idea were seeing therapists or getting mental health care said, you know, I do that too, Seth.
How does it make you feel when you guys hear that? Like,
Well, I think one thing it makes me feel is that, well, though I'm dealing with this, at least I'm doing something good. I'm encouraging people to actually be honest about this. Maybe I'm encouraging people to go seek help that were hesitant to seek help. And, you know, it's worth everything I think that we've gone through.
Telling our stories is a form of public service. You know, we represent people who are deeply affected by mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, who want to see themselves in their elected officials. And I felt like I had a profound obligation to confront the culture of silence and stigma and shame that often surrounds the subject of mental health. And as public figures, we're in a unique position to do so and to inspire hope for the people we represent.
do you feel like there's legitimate criticism there, though, from a constituent saying, I don't know how I feel about somebody who is going to be in briefings and, you know, making our laws dealing with their own acute mental health?
I think it's totally legitimate to ask the question, right? But don't just jump right in to criticize. You know, ask the question, but then let's have a conversation about this, because we have made tremendous progress at dealing with the stigma, but we have so much further to go.
I think the fact that the four of us are here is a sign of progress. But the fact that only four of us are here is a sign that we have a distance to travel. There are 535 members in Congress. I suspect we're not the only four.
I'm pretty sure it's
with
not
mental
just
health
that, right?
Yes.
Especially, you know, it's interesting you said. I remember when I started going to the therapist, I try to find as many ways possible to hide that I was going to a therapist. And it's been, what a sea change that I don't have to do that anymore.
What do you think that Congress can do? Is there more to be done legislatively on mental health? And there's any particular legislation that you would like to spotlight right now?
I co-authored the bill to establish 988, the new National Mental Health Hotline, and it was implemented this past July. We passed it a couple years ago. And just since July, calls are up about 50%.
Wow.
So 50% more Americans are getting help than just a year ago. But here's what's even more amazing. Texts, which of course generally used by younger Americans, texts are up 1,445%.
Wow.
Which speaks to how many more young Americans are getting help, but also
how many did it for so long.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if you don't start working at this, it gets harder and harder.
And I'm wondering if all of you can go through why it's been worth it for you. You guys are all four political leaders, and that just one person, one constituent, one viewer can hear your story and that have a profound impact.
My message to people who are listening to this, your brain can get help. You can heal. And I hope that all of us sharing our stories will help people to not be so hard on themselves and to realize that asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness.
Look, I just did it because I want to be a better father. And that's why I did it.
You seem to be getting a little emotional.
Yeah, it happens once in a while.
Can you tell me how you're feeling right now?
Look, I don't know. I mean, I feel emotional. You know, I went down this journey because I was worried I wasn't going to be a good father. And that's why I'll continue forward.
Congressman?
You go into public service because you want to make a difference in people's lives. And I think passing 988 is just probably the single most impactful thing I've done in Congress, because I hear from people across the country who say, you know, that saved my life. And you know what? The risk was worth it too, right? Because telling my story, telling our stories, I mean, if that had cost any of our political careers, and yet we saved just one life by doing that, it's worth it.
I'm with Seth. If telling your story saves one life or makes one person have a little less pain, a little more hope, that makes it worthwhile. And you know, I worry about, I'm a millennial, but I worry about Generation Z. You know, it's the first generation to grow up on social media. It's a generation that was hit hard by the isolation of COVID-19. Those are two massive mental health events. And so I feel like the need for mental health care has taken on the fierce urgency of now.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.